So, welcome to Meet the Industry. How
Thank you.
are you doing?
Good. Busy day. Never a dull day in our lives.
so, what's keeping you busy at the moment? Are you trying to organize shows or what?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, shows is like the dream. And when things get better, we'll all hopefully get back to shows.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, like we go
Virtual,
between,
like at the moment, जो कर सकते हैं वो is that what you're like?
yeah, sort of that, and also doing a few brand deals and trying to figure out some song anthems, trying to figure out some branded collaborations, sort of working a lot with artists on their new releases,
Right.
because that's something that is totally doable and possible in this environment and these times that we live in.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much most of what we're up to.
So,
Um,
at Big Bad Wolf, you're managing only musicians, or you're also managing non-musicians?
so the company represents people across music, comedy. There's an illusionist, and there's a pretty
Okay.
sizable now cinema division as well. I've pretty much worked in music most of my life, most of my professional life for the last decade. So, I mean, we always do a few odd things here and there, but most of what I've done, and 99% of what I've done, has been focused around music, and that's why I specialize on that side of the business.
Right. So, how
Um,
many artists are you managing currently, and who are they?
I personally look after Prateek Kuhad and an upcoming singer-songwriter called Kamakshi Khanna.
Right.
And the
But
roster otherwise, and Karsh as well, yeah.
okay. And like
I
when
mean,
did
Karsh and us have worked together for the last decade or so. He's sort of figuring out what he wants to do next, and we're also taking a little bit of a breather from that. So whenever that time is right, we'll definitely be in the same room together. But for now, I think it's my time is mostly split between Pratik and Kamakshi.
right?
But the
So
company in music, we represent people like Indian Ocean.
yeah,
There's Veer Das's Alien Chutney. There's Alokananda Das Gupta, who's a music producer and a background score producer. She's done music for Sacred Games and Breathe and all of those shows.
right. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, bunch of
So
different things.
what's the start of your journey like before Big Bad Wolf? What when did the artist
Interesting.
manager in you uh, take birth, and how?
Well, I actually started out being a musician myself, like
Mhm.
from
Oh,
school.
right.
So I done a mix of both Hindustani classical as well as uh, but I was always exposed to international music.
Right.
So I mean, from childhood, because my parents listened to a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and obviously the bands that I mean the kind of pop that all of us listen to: Bon Jovi, John Denver,
Of course.
Brian Adams in India was
Yeah.
like is
Yeah.
as pop as pop can be
Right.
in the traditional sense. Even though he's considered rock in the world, he's actually
Pop
pop in
rock.
India.
Yeah.
Um, and so I mean, I sort of like I think it was class 11th when we sort of like formed a band in school, which was
Mm-hmm.
something that never happened before. And we were like we were called Killer Weed. Um, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I had no idea what that meant. To be very honest and plain,
Seriously.
I was a straightforward guy. But
Uh-huh.
interestingly, another guy from the scene, Anupam Roy, who was the guy behind the sound of a lot of like bands for the longest time. And he was like the go-to guy for every production that any band used to do.
Yeah.
In fact, Superfuzz, Joint Family, all the way from there, all the way till now. Like we just did a project day before yesterday together. So we were in a band together.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in school together. So we were that time frame, like class
Yeah.
11th and 12th. And then the band sort of split up. Everyone started going their own way. Once we went to college, there was a year where I was trying to meet new people and meet new
Mm-hmm.
people in music. Um, while I was doing my bachelor's in business in Delhi. And
So
then I met a couple
you're
of.
from Delhi. You originally
I'm from Delhi.
always been from
Yes.
Delhi. Okay.
I've lived in Delhi since the age of 6, and went to college in Delhi as well. Um, but I've done a lot of like tried a lot of things and failed, and then tried a lot of things.
Yeah,
And
same here. Same here.
but I think that's what life is about. All of those add
Yeah.
up as experiences.
Yeah.
I went to do hotel management and
Uh-huh.
couldn't hack it, so
Mhm.
quit in 3 months.
Mhm.
Came back, then found a college because I didn't want to lose a year, and went to this college in Delhi which doesn't exist anymore. Um, and graduated. And through that time period, I met a lot of people and met a lot of musicians and formed a band, and we played a bunch of shows in Delhi. It started with this band called The New Beginning, and then
Mhm.
it they're just mostly covers. But then somewhere around like the first, then around 2008, I got my first job, so I started working with Citibank.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and while I was working in banking, I actually was in a band the whole time. So it was
Uh-huh.
like you go to work because you have to go to work,
Right.
and then it
You do
touch
your
7
passion
p.m. and you're
afterwards.
with your band,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have fun and you're gonna play and you're gonna play music. We played music because we loved playing music. It was not about money. It was not about a profession. It was not about any of that. Which is something that I actually tell a lot of people who are starting out in music today, that
Yeah.
if you start out with this objective that, hey, I want to make money of this to get go with, it's going to be uphill
Yeah.
because it takes time. Everything
Yeah.
takes time. Um, but we did that, and it's sort of like, I think being in that band for that year and a half, like the last 1.5 years that I was in while I was at Citibank, actually opened a lot of doors because I started meeting a lot more people in the scene, started connecting. We used to have RSJ and Pub Rock Fest and RSJ Live Nights and venues like TC and Mez and Cafe Morrison, and all of them were always places that we would get a chance to play at. It wasn't We would
Right.
pay 2,000 to 3,000 rupees to play those gigs as a band.
Would
um,
pay to play
but
them.
we got paid three
You
thousand
got paid. Oh,
rupees,
okay. Yeah.
which is what we used to get paid 3 months to 6 months after the gig. So money was definitely not the reason why any of us did it.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was somewhere around 2015 where I was like, sorry, 2009, 8, 9, where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to like think about my career.
Acha.
That's when I
You
actually.
can't do this as in because it was taking up a lot of your professional time,
No, it
or
was just because I was looking for an opportunity and that opportunity wasn't in Delhi.
ah,
So I had to leave the city. So when I left the city, the next best option was to find a job elsewhere. So when I left,
ah,
it was the hardest thing for me was to let go of the music because that was like
mm,
my, like I felt really happy doing that.
mhm,
And then I moved to Hyderabad. Within the first week, knew I need to leave,
mhm.
but didn't quit for a year and a half for whatever reasons. In that 1.5 years, I must have harassed every single person in the business that exists today, including
Ah,
my boss, Dhruv Jagasya.
uh-huh.
Um, I've sent like God knows how many emails, follow ups, calls, messages. We didn't have WhatsApp and all back then. It was SMSs and things,
Yeah,
and people won't
or
reply.
BBM at least.
Or BBM. No, there was no BBM also. BBM
Uh-huh.
also happened to everyone 2 years hence from there.
Okay.
Um, and then I sort of moved like through just connecting with people. I met a few people. I met the guys
Mhm.
at OML.
Yeah.
They were doing this conference with the British Council called Unconvention. I took a bus from Hyderabad to Bombay because I didn't want to spend money. Paid like $2,000 for that ride.
Mhm.
Got to Bombay, crashed in someone's house, and experienced the live music for the first time with Pentagram, Swaratma, Raghu Dixit Project, Shire and Funk. And there was like metal that happened with Demonic Resurrection and Scribe all playing inside a church in Bandra. So all of that, we went through a lot of madness
Yeah.
in those 3 days, and that sort of like
During this,
convinced me.
you were just an attendee, just
Yeah.
attending
I was
the gig.
definitely an attendee,
Yeah.
but also eager to want to know more about what's going on. So I met so
Mhm.
many people at the conference,
Mm.
hung out with them, chatted with them, got a meal with them, did all of that.
Did you
And
learn the what killer weed was at that point?
yeah, by that point, I sort of knew. Killer Weed was only like, I
Huh.
didn't know what it was when I was in school. When I was in
Huh.
school, but the minute I graduated out of school, it sort of like
Yeah.
dawned on me that, hey, that was a stupid name, but it was fun. I mean, while it lasted, we actually
Mm.
drew a marijuana leaf on the bass drum, and actually went to school and put it up. When I think about it,
uh,
it was the most outrageous thing because my school plays
oh
like
yeah.
was Sardar Patel Vidyalaya, which was the most like it's funded, it's backed by the Gujarat Education Society, and is very like orthodox in those manners, and it's all about Hindi and patriotic music. So,
Or any
I
school,
mean,
man. I was at a convent school, and if we had pulled off something like that at the school, we would be in a principal's office the next morning.
yeah. So we burned the PA. The next time we played, the first
Uh,
time we played, we played. The second time we played, we actually like were supposed to play 3 songs. By the end of the second song, we'd already burned the system, so there was no way we could play any more songs. So, I mean, that's basically what happened. Um,
so then, yeah,
and
you were
then
hanging out
so
with these
then I moved
bands.
back. Then I moved back to Delhi after that. I quit my
Okay.
job. I moved back to Delhi. Said,
Mhm.
okay, while music is definitely an option, but I don't know if I'll get a job, if I'll get paid, if anything will happen, all of that.
Hmm.
And I didn't get any interest from anyone for over 4 months, 5 months.
At
So in
that
that
point,
much
what
time,
were you looking to do when you went back to Delhi?
I was actually studying for my GMAT to actually apply to go and do my MBA.
Uh-huh. So you
So
already had plans, and at the same time, were you
I
like
was thinking
figuring out
about it.
some way
I was
to be in the music scene?
Yeah, I mean, I always liked being around musicians and being around people. So I think that's where my desire for being in the business came from.
Hmm.
Um, and then in 2010, I got a call one afternoon from the current MD of of OML, Ajay, who basically took like a 30-minute, hi, hello, we are restructuring call. That the business is restructuring, we're reforming the business. A lot of the old people are leaving. We're resetting what we want to be and who we want to be in the business. And asked me my background and this and that. And the fact that I knew how to work Excel sheets and the fact that I knew how to think about the
Yeah,
business beyond just the passion for music
yeah.
was definitely an attractive thing, I think.
You knew the
Um,
numbers. You knew how to work with the numbers.
a little bit. I won't say a lot. I think
Mhm.
there was, but that's how I moved to Bombay in 2010 to work with OML. We were literally working out of a bedroom, a 1 BHK in Malad, and we'd get to office at 9, leave at 11. I mean, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. That was pretty much my life for easily 3 to 4 months when I joined the company. Um, and then I was suddenly thrown in the deep end to manage artists.
Mhm.
And the first band that I got to manage was actually Pentagram. Um,
Okay,
and that was the
that's
biggest.
actually like a great
Into
first break. Uh,
Well, I would say it was actually the best learning experience that I've got till today.
exactly because of that,
I
because it's a big
We did
band and you have big responsibilities. Kind of this pressure
we
to not fudge things up. And
Yeah, and we fucked a lot of things up in the first 6 months from the and because only because I had no fucking clue. I didn't know what is
yeah.
a tech rider.
So what?
I
I
didn't
mean,
when I joined the business. I had no idea what is a twin amp. Like
uh,
what the hell are these things? Like
yeah,
today, things that are standard norms for most artists at that point were, hey, like what is that? And like you didn't have
mm,
equipment, you didn't
yeah,
have gear.
yeah,
So I actually in the first 6 months ended up touring a lot more. We started doing a lot of programming with the Hard Rock cafes across
uh,
India.
yeah,
So for almost 3 years, I was running that for the Hard Rocks at OML.
yeah.
Um, and that honestly opened my eyes to learning how to work with a lot of international bands. We put a whole tour plan together, tour itinerary for bands. We toured with in the first 6 months. I toured with this two Canadian acts called Tegan and Sarah and Bedouin Sound Clash,
Hmm.
which were like unknown acts at that point. Tegan and Sarah were playing at the Oscars and the Grammys last year, so I mean that's how big those guys have gotten.
Right.
We and everything from putting them up in a hotel to dealing with taking them on a food experience in Bombay to going to taking them on a boat ride to Elephanta Caves, them coming back and their stomach getting upset,
Wow.
going to Delhi and still playing a show with all of that happening. Like
Yeah,
I think those are real life experiences that you can't get any other
yeah,
way but by doing it.
yeah,
And it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about
yeah,
anything. It was all about let's just do this and learn from all of these experiences.
Yeah, because
Um,
at that point, I think the whole concept of artist management was sort of evolving itself, and sort of it had incepted itself in India. I think around that period, because that's when booking artists and acts came up for whatever field
So
you
there
were in.
was,
Like,
I mean, to be honest, I think by 2010 there was a handful of artists that had already sort of started making a name for themselves.
in fact, that was the time around which Sunburn blew up. Swedish House Mafia came to Bombay. Then there were talks of Dead Mouse coming. Then I think Axwell came, and not
Yeah,
Axwell,
all of
sorry,
that.
Avicii came. So
Correct.
that was a big,
I
big.
I had no
Um,
understanding of that, and to be very honest, till today, my understanding of
uh,
electronic music is very, very poor.
no, just about
I know the
live
big names.
music and concerts in
Correct, correct.
general, because we weren't
Agreed.
used to
So
going out for concerts of apna Bollywood acts. Very once in a while there would be something like that, but other than
correct.
that, there was no real live music per se.
There wasn't, and in fact, um, I would say that I was super happy and proud to actually be part of the first team that actually put the first weekender together in 2010.
Mm.
Um, and that is probably, I would say, one of India's most successful
For sure.
and
Yeah.
efficiently run music
Huge,
festivals
huge
um,
festival
over the last
in terms of,
decade.
yeah.
Um, some 2010 till now, it would have been the best 10 years, 11-year actually, but 10 years if you look at it that way. Um, this year, but unfortunately, nobody can do anything on ground.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, working with artists like Asian Dub Foundation, Lacuna Coil, um, all of those like cool rock, folk, metal, I mean,
Yeah.
textures. We did a whole bunch of different things through
Right.
the years while I was at OML, while I was also managing artists. So my first and major learning was Pentagram. And I think
Right.
till today, they're all like buddies more than like work scenarios. I never looked at Pentagram as work. It was always a passion because I really loved the guys and I loved watching them on stage. I
Yeah.
never sat back. Like, I don't sit back and listen to a lot of the music of artists that I work with. I somehow with a lot of artists, and I would say Prateek is probably the first one where I actually do that. With
Mhm.
most of my artists, I enjoy watching them on stage because I think that's where they really come alive and that's where they really like put a smile on people's faces. And I've never had a show with Pentagram where they've got off stage
Yeah.
and not like made a mad crowd go crazy or party or have a great
Yeah.
time, whether they were playing a club or whether they were playing a auditorium. We've done gigs in like auditoriums in Delhi where we shattered in college auditoriums where we shattered all the glass because of the amount of sound that they generate. We did a gig in all the way in Aizawl where we got there after taking two changes of flights,
Mhm.
and the vendor had not got half our tech rider. The
Mhm.
power was literally two cables
Mhm.
jacked in straight to a transformer, where
Yeah.
if the lights went up, the sound went down. Each speaker box was a different make with a different amplifier
Yeah.
because it was basically someone had called all the religious speakers that were used in that city and
Yeah.
were put up as a venue. That was probably the only gig where Vishal came up to me and was like, "Bro, I think we gotta get out of here soon. Like this is not happening." Um, but and we had close to 25,000 people at that gig easily.
Wow.
And in
In
fact, the
Aizawl.
last in Aizawl, yeah. So I mean, it's crazy because people are on top of trucks, on top of their buses, on top of their cars, just coming to watch the gig in a college. I think it was NIT over there.
Mm.
So I mean, we've done all sorts of mad things. That year, we did close to in 2014 between Jan and Feb. I think I had booked close to 14 or 15 shows with Pentagram in colleges. It was
Mm.
only colleges.
Mm.
And I had taken a punt and I had gone up against Vishal and Shikhar's manager saying, I'm going to book gigs. And he was like, don't take away all my dates because Vishal and Shikhar need to do shows. I was like, sorry. And Vishal was like, yeah, go for it. Let's have some fun. And we went and played like all these shows.
Yeah.
We made a documentary which never really came out, unfortunately. Hopefully, one day it will see the light of day.
Mm.
But just watching them on stage, seeing them in front of like so many kids,
Yeah.
college gigs was always the fun, the real
Yeah.
thing, and the
Yeah.
real energy that these guys
Yeah.
brought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like working with them was definitely
Yeah.
a learning experience. Working with Karsh, I mean, honestly, opened my eyes to the wideness of what music from India can actually be and
Mhm.
how to
Mhm.
take it from it being in its purest classical sense to actually like
Yeah.
complicating it into these like 13-piece orchestras where,
With Karsh, sorry to break you. Actually,
yeah.
I just about Karsh, I wanted to ask you that he's always been like a gem of an artist. He's really talented. He's always kept it real, and with him, it's always been that mostly either if you know Karsh, you will go and see him perform. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't find out about him. So, as an artist, what kind of management does that require, like apart from sorting out the live shows and connecting with people who give gigs to Karsh, or like you do something with Karsh. In terms of development, how does it go? Because he's like, I think he's like a
To be very
diamond.
honest, that is true. And to be very honest, I think by the time I started working with him, he was already established
Yeah, he's,
um,
he's been
as a
he's been
name.
up there for a while, for a long time.
He's been out there for close to 22 years now. I
Yeah.
mean, in the music world, he's played with literally everyone on the planet. Um, from doing close to being on over 300 albums around the world, to
Mm.
when he was a session musician in New York, to
Yeah.
actually being the first guy to actually sign a record deal in the US, to actually like being one of the first like
Broken
Indian
all
origin
sorts of
artists.
records.
Yeah, to I mean do all these things at a time when it was unheard of. I mean
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
is definitely something that
So
puts him in a
about that,
different
I wanted
nutshell.
to ask you, as a manager, how, I mean, do you think that he's this guy who sort of doesn't need someone to manage him as an artist in terms of how to develop his brand, uh, or is it just like if you have a if Kash has a manager, it's mostly just for managing his logistics and stuff like that?
Well, I think honestly, when I go about that with most artists, I mean, and I'm going to change this like from just Karsh to in general with artist management.
Mhm.
I don't think there is a one size fits all approach that can be taken with any
Mm.
sort of
Right.
artist.
Yeah.
Um, if you're an unassuming, quiet person who doesn't like talking on social media, doesn't like
Mm.
doing all of the embracing a lot of those technologies, but you've already developed a name for yourself by just the music that you put out in the world,
Mm.
that's great. And I think with most artists, I mean, and this is going to sound funny, but like artists like Kirsch have been around before social media existed.
Mhm.
Um, to be honest, like they
Yeah.
were probably there right at the time when Napster happened to the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Um, and so they have actually seen the first wave of what the internet can do for an artist.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Kirsch had two tracks that were free tracks given with every Windows PC, with every Windows machine, 2000 machine. He had, he was the first, his was the first test record on iTunes. Like, as the first album that was ever put out on iTunes, he was the first, one of the first like records over there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so, I mean, he's definitely been there and seen the benefits of technology in
Mm.
terms of opening those doors.
Mm.
Um, it's gotten a little crazy for a lot of the artists from that generation because of the fact
Yeah.
that they didn't grow up with like every song needs to have a challenge. Like I didn't look at my music as a challenge, guys. Like I want people to
Yeah.
listen to it, to experience it, to feel it,
Yeah.
and to come out with their own expressions in whatever way, shape, or form they want to. I don't need to see it. You
Mm.
know, my job is to write the best music that I can and
Mm.
put it out in the world,
Yeah.
and then let the audience do the
It's
talking.
the old school ideology, and I think
Well, I don't
everyone
know.
before our
I
during our
don't.
generation sort of comes from the old school ideology. Apart from the Gen Z who sort of were born into the internet age.
Correct. But I also think it's not just that. I think it's also like, and this is something that, I mean, I'll sound a little like crazy when I say this, but social media, when used to your advantage, is your biggest tool today
Yeah.
to market yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
it's democratized the world in a way that it never was before.
Yeah.
Um, you can open your audience to a much wider reach. You can
Yeah.
find fans today everywhere around the world. Look at the way technology is today. We're all sitting in our own homes. We're recording podcasts. We're recording albums, putting out like doing
And
things like
videos
that, which
and stuff like that.
band videos, stuff that was never possible
Yeah.
before. So
Yeah.
technology has advanced itself to a level where
Exactly.
Now, like, the way the world is going to consume things in the future
Mm.
is going to change, and
Exactly.
consumption patterns are definitely going to change. But coming back to the
Changes
whole
already. Yeah.
artist management side of things, I think, like with different artists, it's a different approach. For Prateek,
Mm.
um, he didn't need me to direct him of who he is as an artist.
Right.
He needed help. He needed more help with putting things in order and
Mhm.
being organized and
Like what
helping
kind of
to
things?
creating everything from like a gig to how can I
Right.
improve my performance at a gig to how can I improve the experience of the audience at the gig. Simple things, but
Right. Right.
um,
I asked you because I want to know at that stage where someone's in control of their artistic direction, what are the kind of things they might need someone else to handle for them?
I don't think there is a answer to that as a flat answer. Honestly,
Okay. No, as
some
in
are
whatever you've
like
experienced with Prateek
from
is one
so with
of those
like for
things.
example, Pentagram was already a developed artist by the time I
Mm.
started working with them. It was more about make sure gigs are booked and
Mm.
make sure. I mean, in India we do bookings and management both ourselves.
Mm.
And we end up simply because it just reduces logistical complications for most
Right.
clients. And because there isn't that much work for most people to segregate that for an
Mm.
artist to actually like say, hey, I'll have a separate booking agent and a separate manager, sort of things that happen
Yeah.
internationally
Yeah.
from the get-go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
in fact, in the US, it's in most cities, in most states, it's illegal to have
The
your
same I
manager
do
as your
want.
agent.
Yeah. It's divided
So
out there into like a personal manager and a business manager and stuff like that.
yeah. In India, we don't have that because we still are a while away before we get there. But
Yeah.
we will one day. We will.
Inshallah.
Till then, I mean, with like with some with an unestablished artist,
Mm-hmm.
someone who's
Mm.
just sort of finding their feet.
Mm.
It's more about helping them maneuver their overall aesthetic and their overall vibe and help them find their voice.
Yeah.
And find their voice means go beyond. I mean, as management, honestly, we go and do everything. We don't just do, hey, I do the show related side of business or I do the artwork related side of the
Yeah.
business or the release side of the business. We end up going in between all these various like spaces.
Yeah.
And no 2 days are the same. Some days you're fighting a legal fight with someone, some days you're negotiating a deal with somebody, some days you're fighting with your artist about something. Some days you're just having a great day and listening to music. So um, it changes. Every day is different. Um, with a younger artist, it's more about helping them find their voice and find their voice through their music, find their voice through meeting new people. With some artists, it's all dependent on what the artist needs. Some artists are very like have a go-getter attitude in terms of, hey, I'll find the mix engineer, I'll find the mastering engineer,
Mm.
I'll find my session musician,
Mm.
I'll coordinate all of that. You just help me piece it all together in an Excel
Right.
sheet.
Right.
Some artists need help with all of that,
Right.
and
Yeah.
some artists like need help with PR. Some people need help with overall
Distribution,
communication.
maybe. Yeah.
Some need help with just, let's put on the best show possible and you help me put that show on together
Mm.
with me.
Mm.
So I think it's a mix of all of those things jumbled together in terms of creating who an artist is and defining that artist,
Right.
and defining that personality.
Yeah.
Some artists don't want a defined personality because they feel like they evolve, and these are human beings at the end of the day, and they
Mm.
don't want it to be very fixed for too long. Today
Right.
I write about love, tomorrow I could be writing about like the sky. It's
Mm-hmm.
my mood, it's my emotion, whatever works for me,
Yeah.
and whatever I'm feeling is what I'm going to talk and write about.
Fair enough.
So I mean that's pretty much the essence of the music as I see it, and what artists do with it. Different
Right.
artists have different strategies, and you can come up with all forms of strategy. Like what we did with Kasoor on the last in when we released Kasoor, with a 6-day campaign where we got fans to just
Nice.
comment on his social media,
Right.
and then we actually put out the video where we got over 600 entries from various fans entirely via mailer base. Pieced that video together with the guys from Jugaad over a whole month and a half. So it wasn't a lockdown concept, but became a lockdown concept.
Yeah.
Then post release, use the social media options at your disposal with things like reels, things like like filters on Instagram, and all of that just garnered a crazy amount of attention. Like that, the
Right.
song has got close to 17, 18 million streams across all platforms. Something that is unheard of when you listen to independent music in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So, so yeah.
So with Prateek, how did your journey with Prateek began? Were you there with him since the beginning? And
No. So it's just a funny coincidence, but I happened to be working at OML and I was the one who actually booked him for the first weekender that happened in 2012. While I was at OML, I was the one coordinating everything. And he played a solo set at on the side stage in 2012. That's where he actually came and said, "Hey, maybe this is something that could happen in India." Um, he had met his manager by that time. At that point, not me. There was another manager, and then he came, and then he was working with that guy for like a good 5 years, and then some. I was his booking agent from 2015 onwards. When I left OML and joined Big Bad Wolf, I took over bookings only for him, and I was trying to find. We were putting together experiences every year for us. Like every year was a different experience. One year was when he did the In Tokens and Charms release,
Mhm.
these guys put on, I wasn't part of that, but they put on like amphitheater gigs because they felt that was the right experience. They all lost a lot of money because they didn't sell that many tickets, but it was about putting on an experience.
Mhm.
Um, Post that, we ended up doing a bunch of club shows and a club tour later in the year, which sold out very quickly. That's where things sort of like started growing for us. But with Prateek, he's always been an artist who wanted to be a songwriter first
Right.
and a performer later.
Right.
Like, I think he's only come into his own as an artist, as a performer in the last year and a half. I would personally say. Till then, he was still finding his way in terms of
Right.
how to do this. Like, he would go on record talking to press saying, "Hey, I hate playing shows." And I would be like, "Aisa mat bol, we'll all lose business." But when I look back, I think it's good only that an artist was honest in the larger scheme of
Yeah.
things. I think it's fine. Like everyone can do their own
Did
things.
that sort of help you guys set up shows in a way that suits him and sort of
Yes.
enhances his performance in his authentic way, like without him having to do things that he did not feel like doing?
Yeah, we tried doing that a lot. In the beginning, it was hard because of the fact that, you know, there's only so much funding you can do yourself.
Yeah,
We did
that was one big
so,
topic I was going to come to later, but just keep telling me
I
about
mean,
it.
in 2000
I was
and
wondering that, how do you.
2016, we actually put on two auditorium shows in Bombay and Delhi,
Uh-huh.
which we intended to sell primarily to mailer base and
Mhm.
experiment and see how many tickets we can actually sell to them. They got a 48-hour heads up on the tickets and a
Mhm.
discount as well.
Mhm.
And we did Kamani Auditorium in Delhi and we did Sophia Auditorium in Bombay. And we sold both those shows out in 7 days. Um,
Wow.
and that's where, like a
Was
lot,
was that kind of unprecedented?
I mean, it was. We knew that there's a base, but we didn't know how big a base.
Ah,
And I
yeah.
mean, I don't think even after that we really pushed the knob on how far we could go for a while. We waited till 2018 for that to actually start happening. But
When did you
that
like
sort
sort
of
of realize that he was ready for an auditorium show? Was it the kind of response he was just getting online? Because he wasn't. I don't think he
no,
was
honest. To be very
performing that
honest,
many gigs.
yeah. To be honest, in Prateek's case, less is more has always been the strategy,
Okay.
and that's always been something that has worked in his favor. Um, he's never been about like I want to play 100 shows a year. It's always been about I want to play the right shows and I
Right.
want to put on the right experience
Right.
so that it works for me. Like if you put Prateek in 2015, if you put him in a club, in a regular club and asked him to
Mm,
play,
mm,
he would have been butchered. Like, and it happened. Like at a
mm.
couple of gigs where people are talking, there's only so much you can bump the level of the PA up because his music is very soft.
Yeah.
In a bar, you're going to have clangy sounds. People are going to be drinking. It's not like the bar can be shut during the performance because that's when the money is made for the venue. So, and India works differently from the West, where it's not all based on tickets. Like In the West, you basically have a percentage of what you make on the tickets. In India, we end up getting, and as you grow, that
Based
changes a
on
little bit.
crowd mainly, कितना crowd pull कर सकते हो.
In India, that's something that's happening now a lot more, where a lot more
Yeah.
artists and a lot more promoters are trying to work that model.
I think
But
even the audience is sort of just warming up to the idea of paying to watch anyone
yeah,
perform.
and that was actually something that actually Prateek actually is really forefronted. Like,
Yeah,
I don't want to do shit for
yeah,
free,
yeah.
or gigs for free, because and that's something that like I detest till today, where brands come and say, "Please, let's do this as a collaboration, please," and you'll get PR value. I'm like, oh yeah, all of us get enough PR value in our lives. I am doing this for free. You are a brand. You want to build your brand on the back of the value of the artist. You pay the artist a certain fee.
Yeah.
So in Prateek's case, it was always about putting on the right experience. And we always knew his music would work in an auditorium simply because people, when they're seated, are generally quieter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and there's no bar and there's no like unnecessary noise. And it's the
So these
same
things you all figured
experience of
out on
theater.
the run, right? Like while doing
Well,
other shows which did not work, you started realizing that this is the
we
space
knew,
to
even
sort
when
of
we were
belong.
doing those shows, we knew like if we book him in a venue where it's going to be his
Noisy and all, it
fans,
won't work.
people will stay
Right.
quiet because of the fact that they know if they want to listen to the artist, they're going to have to stay quiet because that's how the artist is. Um,
Mm.
so we did two auditorium shows that year. They did really well. Later that year, the guys from Humming Tree actually brought Mike Posner down to India. So he opened for Mike Posner that year, right before Mike Posner went to the Grammys. That was in early 2017. Later in 2000, and then we played a few festivals and colleges in the middle. But most of our gigs were gigs that he wanted to play. It wasn't about let's go and play this festival and that show and this and show that other people are doing. In 2017, we were like, should we go and do a bigger auditorium show before we put out the new music, or let's strip it back? So we actually stripped it back and scaled it back, where he did 3 gigs across Delhi, Bombay, and Bangalore in 100 to 150 capacity rooms only. But the price of the ticket was taken up from 400-500 rupees to close to 2,000 rupees. So we sold all those shows out. And by then we knew that there is an audience that will buy tickets at anywhere between 500 to 700 people per city, in at least 5 to 7 cities in the country. Um, the
Anil,
success of
just a moment.
Cold Mess,
Sorry,
yeah,
just to cut you off. Just a minute. I'm pausing this. Hello. Yeah.
life, man. It's life of working from home. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're all dealing with it. Um,
Yeah.
but
So about
then,
those after those 3 shows.
so we did those 3 solo shows and we made no money, honestly. But we did those shows because they were the right experience for the fans.
Right. And people I think
Um,
understood the vibe that, this needs to be
and it was
enjoyed.
just a solo gig. In fact, in Bangalore, there's a whole moment in that show where we were having power issues and the power kept tripping for whatever reason. In the midst of the show, where the board went off, the PA went off, the lights went off, and Prateek just picked up his guitar at one moment and just started playing, and the audience started just humming along and singing along. Like, those are the moments that you live for, as we're putting together these experiences, and just seeing those fans smile was really special for us. Um, we did all of that, and then he played like the pre-headline slot at Weekender in 2017 as well, where he opened right before Cigarettes After Sex, and that's where we saw this crowd of like over 10,000 people literally singing along to every song.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, this is going somewhere. Let's see what happens. Um, and then he went and recorded Cold Mess, and that record came out in mid of 2018. And that did really well, like because of the fact that people hadn't heard him before. Like, a lot of people actually like heard him, and started listening to his music, started sharing his music, because suddenly there was like new music from Prateek that everybody wanted, and they'd heard at these gigs and at these shows, but didn't have the audio of it to listen to.
Yeah.
So that
That
led to a lot
connection
of
was made with the
that
audience, and
connection
then there
was
was the
made.
factor where the audience is waiting for music from that artist, which is something,
Correct.
which is the point where almost every artist wants to get to. That people
Correct.
are
And in
waiting for
Prateek's
my music.
case, it's never been about hurrying things. It's always been about doing things the right
Right
way,
way. Yeah.
and being patient about it, and then putting out a good marketing campaign around it
Yeah.
in terms of how we can put it out. Like, every time we do something broadly, 9 out of 10 times it first goes to the mailer base, even if it's sent to them 2 hours before something.
Hmm.
The an emailer is sent out to the fans first, because that fan first approach has worked in his favor throughout
Yeah.
his life, and we want that to
Right.
continue as we keep growing. Um, and then in 2018, he sort of wanted to change management, and he wanted to come over. He wanted to work with me, and we ended up having a conversation, and so we started working in pretty much exactly 2 years ago, from September of 2018, is when I took over entirely. Um, and we did a bunch of college shows that year, and we started testing the waters in terms of how many fans there are, what sort of tickets people are buying at these shows, or even at a college gig, what's the price ticket we can get, how much are people willing to pay.
Hmm.
Um, and then in Feb of 2019, we actually did the show with the guys from Humming Tree again, but in Bangalore, where they announced a show, and in 72 hours they'd sold two and a half
Hold on.
thousand tickets.
Wow.
Um,
So it was an outdoor show,
it
not
was an
inside
outdoor
the commentary.
show at the Indiranagar Club. That really opened all of our eyes to the fact that, hey, there is fans,
Proper
and
fan
Cold Mass
following.
is out. There's new music that fans have listened to, and
Yeah.
we need to plot a tour. Um, so and then we had a whole plan of him touring overseas that year, where he was going to the States. He'd been signed by Paradigm Talent, which is and represented by Tom Windish there. So he ended up going and doing a 30 date tour across the US, between South by Southwest and New York. We ended up doing, and radio shows and everything in between. We did close to
So
30
at that point,
performances.
he was already famous or just known in America. I mean, right after he signed the EP to
Well, I
the label.
think, I know the label was Savan.
Uh,
Savan has a record label called Artist Original, so they helped
right.
us put the whole record for Cold Mess together.
But at
Um,
that point, there was no indication of interest from like abroad about his music, like
we
substantial.
knew that there's fans, and we knew that there would be some fans, and the rooms that were booked were 250 to 300 capacity rooms
Hmm.
everywhere,
Okay.
but purposely because we didn't want to take a bigger risk as you
Right.
start. This was his first real tour in the US, right?
Right.
Um, he'd done a solo gig tour when he released the EP in 2018,
Hmm.
but that was more like 50 to 80 to 120 capacity,
Hmm.
like coffee bars and things like that. Um, and it was a solo tour. This was a full band tour. We
Right.
took the band from here, and we actually went and played all those cities between like the US and Canada. And they did pretty much, like, we sold 90% of the shows out, and that led to them saying, hey, let's book another tour later in the year
Right.
at bigger rooms. It'll be lesser shows, but it'll be better experience for you, because these are bigger rooms and better green rooms, and we'll plan it out better and this and that. It was also our first learning experience of how to tour overseas,
Internationally.
how
Yeah.
to be efficient when you're touring,
Yeah.
how you should not always hire a backline and actually buy your own backline and carry it to every gig if you can. Simple things like that artists in India never have to worry about.
Yeah.
Like, you could be the smallest artist in India and demand a keyboard and get it. In the US, it's unheard of. You have to pay for it. You want it, cool. This guy will get it for you. You have to pay him from the gate. Whether you make money or you don't make money, that guy is going to
Of
charge his
course.
fee, right? It's
Rentals.
called
Yeah.
rentals. Those are the biggest learnings that I think came out of the US tour that we did in March, April, from a learnings point of view for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we came back from that tour, and um, he went and did 2 dates and played the Great Escape Festival in the UK in May that year. And we came back from there and knew that putting this tour together in India was like the most important part of
Mm.
our strategy going forward. So we actually worked with the guys at Orange Juice and Insider to actually piece together a plan for 11 cities across India. We were being both situations where we were like, let's be conservative, but let's also be ambitious. Um, and we were glad that the folks at Supermoon and Z Live actually came on board to actually like back the tour and pick up the entire tour and promote it and allow us to do what we do, which is solo shows and I mean, it was a standalone tour with no opening acts, where people came to watch Pratik
Right.
in 11 cities, and we sold close to 30,000 tickets across those cities. So that
Wow.
was something that was really special.
So, would all these events be funded by one entity, or was it like distributed amongst a bunch of sponsors and a
So
few of
Z
your own
came on
investments
us.
or something?
So
How
we
have the
were
nature
we
of investments in these tours been like?
so we in fact actually initiated the tour by saying we're going to take the risk ourselves and do it because it's the right thing to do.
You mean Big Bad
And
Wolf?
Big Bad Wolf, Orange Juice, Insider, everyone was working together to put the whole
Okay.
tour together.
Okay.
Obviously, if we were putting the tour together, we would have been a bit more stingier in terms of
Right.
what tech and what hospitality and all of those things.
Mm.
But Z was really nice to come on board and actually like help put the whole
Believe
tour
in it.
together with us, believe in the whole tour.
Mm.
They picked the tour up. They basically became the promoter of the whole tour.
Mm.
Backed the whole tour. Artists got fee. Tickets were sold as per our agreed pricings across all those cities. In Delhi, in December, we had close to 9,000 people that showed up to one show. Like that was some that I mean, there's videos of that on Pratik socials that you can pick up. There are like there's an experience that you can't like replicate
Right.
any other way, but
And that
by
too, it
putting
was
on these
just
shows.
Pratik. It wasn't like part of a lineup or having an opening act to like sort of fund the. I mean, just
So
get
we
more
did
audience,
seven
draw more people.
shows, which yeah, we did seven shows with auditoriums, and we did four shows which were outdoors. We did Bombay, Pune, Bangalore. I mean Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, and Delhi as outdoors, and we did all the other cities as auditoriums. Anywhere between 700 to 1100 tickets in auditoriums,
Wow.
and we pretty much sold most of these auditoriums out except Surat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, and we dealt with a lot of issues. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Pune was supposed to happen in October. It rained. Then that got rescheduled to December. So you lose a bunch of tickets.
Mm.
Then we did the show. Then the Delhi show, 1 week before that, the NRC protest started happening in Delhi. So
Mm.
there was a whole bunch of negativity going on around that.
Right.
We had to postpone the Bangalore show to January because NRC had like called section whatever 144 in Bangalore. So there was no way you could put on the show
Yeah.
there.
Correct.
So a lot of like the lockdown has impacted us, but there was a lot of shit going
A
on
lot of
before the
shit getting
lockdown
fucked up
already.
as always.
Um, but all in all, I mean, everybody walked away from the tour really happy. There
Mm.
was obviously sponsors that backed the tour. There was Z as a promoter went and sold brand activations to a bunch of brands that actually came on board to help the whole tour together.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, all in all, it was a good tour. It was a great experience for us.
Yeah.
And hopefully, we'll do bigger things whenever we come back. But till then, focus is back on putting work into the music, getting the right music together,
Right.
piecing it with the right partners around the world, and making sure we can take Pratik and actually go global with it as much as possible.
Yeah. That would be the natural final frontier to
It's
get more
happening,
global.
and it's gonna. I mean, there's big news coming soon. So when that comes, you will hear about it. Can't talk about it right now,
Looking
but
forward to it.
but it's gonna be. It's all been very special. The experience of working with Pratik, honestly, is has been next to nothing else that I've ever done in my life. I mean, he's one of the most level-headed, practical, straightforward like people to work with, and and that's something that has been a big learning curve, for
Right.
me as well.
Mm.
After all these years, to actually find the energy to, find that excitement to work with someone has been definitely very special.
And so this was Prateek Kuhad with who you sort of experienced a meteoric rise just as him as an artist, with him as an artist. And I want to talk about the other artist that you're managing, Kamakshi Khanna, how the experience has been with her. And of course,
It's
I
been
mean,
great. I mean, I think with Kamakshi, honestly, we started out working together in 2000, end of 2016.
mhm,
We started working. The first thing we did together was actually her album release, which was Cakewalk,
right,
which came out at that point. And honestly, from 2017 to literally now, it's been more about like her focusing on her songs and focusing on um, her live performance. And she really loves playing with people, and she really loves being on stage, and she really loves writing music with people, and playing covers. So it all is part of who she is as an artist and as a
Mhm.
songwriter.
Mhm.
And I think all of that has shaped her into a place where now she's ready to put a lot of music out in the world.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Because I
hopefully in the
haven't
next
seen much from her since 2017, and
correct. We haven't
before,
put out any music. Before that, she had an EP, which she had put
yeah,
out 2 years before that, and
before
then
that she had like this momentum going with her after the show that she did where there were these judges. I don't
with the
remember the name.
stage.
Yeah, with the stage, correct. She had a lot of momentum going, and she released a lot of music, and then uh, I thought that there might be some reason why she is taking this time off the
Well, honestly, she wanted to find her own voice and
right.
find her own sound, and I think
Was it
everyone
a
goes through
challenge for
that.
you
Every
as
mu-
an agency, as a manager, when she sort of needed this time to sort of find herself? Was it challenging for you, or were you just
No,
confident that okay, she
because
figured it out?
yeah, because I never sign like, and this is something that is a joke, but I never sign artists with the objective of making money. Like I feel like I need to like the musician, I need to like the artist. They need to like us,
Hmm.
and we need to be family before we actually like start talking business, because
Hmm.
business will come and business will go and careers will be built.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, as human beings, we need to like each other and we need to want to hang out with each other.
yeah.
And like I may
If
like a song, I
if
may
we are
totally
both
not like a song, and it's fine. Like
uh,
that's what it is, and that's the creative process of working with artists. But at the same time, what's most important is making sure that they feel that we're their safe space. We're the kind of space where they can actually share what they're really feeling
hmm,
about their music, about their life, about their career. And in fact, I would actually say that she's been one of the most proactive, productive people that I have seen in these last 6 months. Um, from collaborating with other artists to writing her own songs to sitting in her bedroom and working on herself and honing her craft. She teaches a bunch of kids as well. She takes online classes. She's been doing that. Um, all while we've been working on,
our
how are we
own
going to craft her next release and her next record.
right.
We've signed a deal with the good folks at Artist Originals for her. So there's going to be a track that's going to come out, a song that's going to come out next month. Um, hopefully, the wait has been worth it, and
Mhm.
everybody is excited about it. It's her first Hindi song.
Okay,
Um, so that's going to be interesting.
right.
And she
So
writes in both English and Hindi, and she feels equally comfortable now
that's
writing in those
great, actually.
languages.
Yeah. How
So
do you sort of, I mean, given that you're handling Prateek Kuhad and Kamakshi Khanna, both sizable names, and how much of time do they take up of you on a daily basis? Is it sort of difficult to juggle the two artists since they are, different? As you said,
so
every artist has its own share of duties for you. So,
So I've actually been fortunate that my boss has actually been kind enough to hire me someone who can work with me primarily
okay,
on these two artists.
okay,
There's a girl called Deepika who works with me in Delhi. She's amazing. She takes on a lot of like admin related stuff, so I can work on more of the creative and business side of things. And she also comes up with some of the most amazing creative ideas that sometimes 35-year-olds don't come up with, like, and 22, 23-year olds, just because they're exposed to this technology a lot more.
yeah.
Like, to be honest, I actually felt for the first time in my career that I was thrown under the bus in social media when Snapchat happened. I was like, what the fuck is Snapchat? Why are people using this? They're like 15-second
Yeah,
or 5-second videos, like Vines I got, but like
yeah,
Snapchat, just you see a video and it
yeah,
disappears. At that point, was like,
yeah.
why would you want that?
Same.
And now when I think about it, like,
It's all
like
about that now, isn't it? With Insta
it's all
stories and
about
stuff like that.
it's all about your 15 seconds of fame, as I
Yeah,
call it now,
yeah,
with the world of TikTok and
yeah,
Thriller and whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
But I still strongly feel it starts with the music, and it
Starts with
starts for
music.
every musician.
Yeah.
You need to work on your craft. You need to work on your
I think
art.
we are yet to
Um,
have a musician who's, become a like a rock star on virtual platforms. You know,
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I would say every artist needs to find a way to make it their own. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, I don't mean like, and I don't mean to say that every strategy needs to be the same.
Hmm.
You know, like you need to have a reel strategy, you need to have a TikTok strategy, you need to have a thriller strategy, you need
Ah,
to have this strategy. I'm like, यार आदमी म्यूजिक बनाए पहले, फिर ये सब strategy बना लेंगे. You know,
true,
like
true. Do
um,
you think that most artists are sort of more worried or more concerned about, putting up that image than working on the music, the art per se?
no, I don't think so. I feel like there's a side to your life which is creativity, which is
Mm,
creating the art, and then there's a side to the business, which is the business side of things, which
mm,
is how are you going to market it and learning how to market your stuff over a
mm,
period of time.
mm,
In India, what I have noticed has happened for a lot of releases in the last few couple of years, especially, is people release music, put it out, and forget about it in 2 weeks. You know,
mm,
it's
mm,
not important anymore, it's not valid anymore, nobody's
mm.
talking about it anymore.
Yeah,
And I feel like as artists are growing, it's even more important to find ways to use the mediums that are available at your disposal to actually keep that energy and that momentum going,
yeah.
like by literally using it in a reel or using it in a story or using it in a post or making, yeah, getting a fan to actually make a fan art of it, or
Mm,
to get a designer to come on board and actually design a visual identity to a video that could be their own, but or
mm,
run a marketing campaign around it.
mm.
Every song doesn't need that, but there are a fair number of situations where that happens, you know.
Yeah,
So that's something that I feel very strongly about, that is something that is happening.
yeah.
Um, and um, and as we grow and as we build and as we're evolving what this marketing medium of the world is, because it's all very new.
Yeah.
Everyone like
It's new and it's
TikTok.
actually very fast. Like there's something new happening every now and then. Like TikTok. We were just getting onto Instagram. Before that, there was Snapchat, and then came TikTok. So like people have to pivot really quickly, and usually the ones who are entering new are sort of adopting these newer platforms because they are just experimenting, right? If they've just started making music and promoting themselves, इंस्टाग्राम पे करो या टिकटॉक पे करो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, चल मैं टिकटॉक ट्राई करके देखता हूँ. एंड दैट्स व्हाई आई थिंक सम ऑफ देम रियली फाइंड देयर अर्ली नीश ऑन अ सर्टेन
Correct.
प्लेटफॉर्म.
And I think, I mean, there's no harm in trying things
Yeah,
and doing it. And but finding your voice in all of that madness is time consuming,
yeah.
stressful, hectic. So I feel like nobody should get stressed about it.
Mm.
Like everybody should, and you shouldn't have anxiety over social media. Like first and foremost, I think focus on your music, focus on your art, put put it out, and then once it's out, make sure that there's a there's a strong enough strategy to make sure that the song and the music and the meaning of that song keeps evolving over time and not just on a 1 to 2 week sort of time frame. Because that's something that very, very openly believe, that long-term strategies are needed over a period of 6 weeks to 3 months to 6 months. Like, where is this song going to happen? And it's hard. It's not easy, right? Because indie music is funded by the artist and the artist themselves. There
Yeah,
are people now who are stepping in, who are saying, okay, we'll back you. A distributor will give you a bigger advance. A publisher will step in and give you an advance. But it's still very much DIY, where friends are helping
yeah,
friends put music out there. Um, Making money of that music is still a while away for most artists, and nobody can pay their rent on the back of Spotify streams yet
yeah.
in most cases, unless you built a sizable base. It'll happen after a couple of years, but
Mm.
not in the when you put it out, you know.
Yeah,
So, and the old norm of I will pay you, record labels in India don't back artists that come from the independent scene at all.
yeah,
It's almost unheard of. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of world of music which is called non-film music, which
Mm.
I just smile and turn my face away because I don't believe in it. I'm very openly don't believe in it, but it exists, and it's a way for the bigger names in the Bollywood scene to actually put music that is not going to Bollywood out there, or have creative freedom and just put it out there and see what happens. So
Mm.
from that perspective, I get what it is.
Mm.
Um, so, but from a creative point of view for the indie scene, I think It's more about artists willing to work together, like helping each other out, finding different strategies of working. Okay, you won't pay me in advance.
Mm.
Fine, will you give me a percentage on the track, on the future of the track? Like tomorrow, that track gets synced in a film or an ad or a
Mm.
jingle or like or something like that. Whatever
Yeah.
happens with the track,
Yeah.
we can work a way for everyone to work together, and that's increasingly happening.
Yeah.
The indie scene is actually very supportive and very collaborative, and that's something that I find it's actually easier because the managers don't have to step in. Artists talk to artists.
Yeah.
We only get in to handle the logistics or the legality
Logistics.
of the things,
Right.
and that's something that doesn't really happen that much in the West, and That's why I think India is actually primed to actually break that cusp a lot faster if everybody continues to work together,
Yeah.
produce quality music, package it well, market it well,
Yeah.
and then you'll have 10 artists on a global platform that
All
everybody
Indian.
can look 10 or 100 or why not? Like we
Yeah.
have a lot of us around the world, even if we don't look at the other people. There's enough people of enough Indians out in the world who
Yeah.
will back a
For
successful or
sure.
a growing Indian
Yeah.
artist once they hear the music,
Yeah.
because there's no question about the potential of artists from India.
Yeah.
It's all about
The only challenge I
packaging
think,
and marketing.
yeah, and the tools and the technology and everything is available to India, which sort of levels the playing field for us, which it has over the years. The main challenge is the financial part of it, and just the overall notion of it being sustainable in certain cultures and societies, even whether it's respectable enough for you to be a professional musician or not, because Indians have like that mentality. You either have a job or a business or something, because that is more stable and that is the right way of living life. ये सब
Correct.
तू कॉलेज में कर ले, उसके बाद बैठ जाने का काम पे. So that mentality also sort of holds people back, like certain people who have the talent, who have the knack to write songs or maybe rap or sing, and they probably know that they have the capability but don't have the means to, or even uh, the
Funding.
daring to pursue it,
Correct.
seek
It's a risky business.
improving it. Yeah.
The music business
So
has no guarantees. You could have
exactly.
written the most amazing track and nobody will
Yeah.
hear it.
Yeah.
Or you could have written the most, like, you could have put in so much work into, I mean, in India, I mean, if you go to Punjab, that's like the most case and example story. I don't know if you've ever heard those stories of so many artists who sell their houses, land, this and that, because some label over there is fleecing them to say, Tera gana main nikal dunga. They put
Oh,
those songs out, nothing happens with them, and all of them are broke and sitting. And
okay.
some of them
Know about this at
succeed.
all.
For every one success that you've heard, there'll probably at least 100 from that pinned who nobody knows about. Um,
I had
and
no idea about this.
Punjabi music has always been big in the
Been
world,
big. Yeah.
and which is why you have the success of a Badshah and a Honey Singh and
True.
Sidhu Moswala or like all these guys. But
Yeah.
like for us, like I don't understand that music. I understand the kind of music that I work with, which is left of center, indie,
Mm.
the global
Indie pop.
sounding music.
Yeah.
It's I don't like to use that word. Like I
Pop.
think I don't know what that means.
I
No,
think
I love pop.
ah,
Pop is fine. Pop is what like, and I think like Nuclear and Rhythms are pop to me because of the
yeah.
fact that everybody listens to it. Pop means popular
Popular.
music.
Yeah. Exactly.
And genres were created to market music in the world,
Exactly.
and I
Yeah.
mean that's something I learned from Kash. So
Mhm.
breaking that genre barrier is something that everyone should
Yeah.
strive. Like, what is a genre, and are you
Yeah.
going to limit yourself because hey, I am this and I don't know if it's that? Like, what
And
genre
I
am I
think
going to put it under?
I think I got over these genre was like long ago, maybe in 2010 or 11 when I started listening to electronic. I think the genre wars were over for me right then, because before that period, I was like the biggest metalhead that I could possibly be. Like I was listening to every metal band here and there, and suddenly my interest shifted to electronic, and I was like, boss, in the end, now it's not about genres anymore. It's about what makes you feel good in that point. And over the years, those genre lines have just gotten more and more blurred for me, But what I have seen in the last 2 3 years on a global musical level is that every day there is an artist who is making a song which is just breaking all these genre lines. Like there is no
Yeah.
real distinction whether this is electronic or it's trap or it's down tempo or it's just chill or whatever. In the end, it's something that people like listening to, and
I mean,
it's either cool or it's
I'm one to totally strongly detest genres
yeah,
because I've listened to all styles of music throughout my life. I was the biggest
yeah,
Avial fan without knowing a single word of Malayalam.
same. I
Um,
love
I
Avial.
mean, in my opinion, it's one of
Yeah,
the best records ever produced. Raghu Dixit's album, Hey Bhagwan, for me is always going to be an album that everybody is going to remember because it was the first album of that kind that got produced in India. It's
hmm,
the only album that Vishal and Shekhar Records ever put out, and
that's
is the
right.
reason why. I mean, and it did really well because it was great music. Um, he went all over the world with that. So I mean, like if you look at it from that perspective as an impact of a record on an artist's career,
Hmm,
that's the investment that you look at. You know,
yeah,
like you put in quality music, you put in quality time, you put in the quality production,
yeah,
and then you put it out in the world and market it well, and you'll reap the benefits from it.
yeah.
You know, like
That
and
happens.
that and then marketing is goes into different spaces. You know, like from digital to physical to
Yeah,
how is the CD going to be marketed in those days? Now there's no
yeah.
CD. I mean, kids today say, "What is a CD?" Like they've never seen a
Mhm.
CD.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like we can put it up on a frame on a wall and say, "See, that used to be a CD
Yeah.
as an art piece in a house."
Cassette to matlab,
Um,
it'll be archaeological for them if they ever found a cassette from on the floor or something. They'll be like, "Ye kya hai?"
yeah, even though the cassette may still work, the CD definitely won't work anymore because it'll be scratched so badly. Um, but yeah, I mean, like that's what it is. Like for me, like focusing on the music, focusing on
Mm,
getting that right,
yeah.
and working with the artist in
Mm,
whatever capacity that they need us to work with them on, along with actually working the business side of things, which is things that they may not have the best hold of, you
mm,
know, but respecting the artist's viewpoint, making
mm,
sure that they are informed of everything at every stage,
yeah.
and they're not caught in the dark like about things so that there's no confusion as you go. I think in a relationship those are the most important things as
Yeah.
you grow, you know, and keeping an open form of dialogue. When that stops, that's when problems begin.
And when it comes to relatively new artists, I mean, do you guys as an agency are you personally on the lookout for artists? Are you going and seeking out
Always.
artists?
We're
Are you
always
going to
looking.
shows whose artist name you don't know and maybe hoping to find a gem hidden in the rough?
So we haven't yet, to be very honest with you, we get sent a lot of music, simply because of who we work with and what we've been doing.
Right.
Um, India is still a very growing market, so there's very few artists. I mean, there's very few artist management agencies, in my opinion, still
Mm,
at a national level that actually are doing the kind of work that needs to be done for an entire industry
mm,
to grow. But having said that, there's a bunch of people in every city that are doing cool things.
mm,
I think the scene has changed and evolved and fallen and evolved and grown in the last like decade that I've been a part of it. And it's very different. Like a lot of people are saying, oh, we can compare it to the 70s and 80s in the West. And I'm like, no, you can't because we're living in the times of the digital age, which is very different from what happened back then.
yeah.
And we're actually moving a lot faster, which is
Very true.
why we have to move faster for us to actually succeed and grow.
Yeah.
We're always looking out
And they are
for
also moving at the same fast speed that we are moving at right now.
exactly. So I mean, the same thing. I mean, the fact that now there is a Billboard chart where with Thriller, where Diljit Dosanjh and Arban Malik's independent stuff or whatever their original music is breaking out on
There's
the
a lot.
same numbers as any pop guy from the West
Yeah.
is testament to the fact that
Yeah. Yeah.
you know it can
Says a
happen.
lot
Like
about the
it
state.
can totally happen.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just about putting the right teams together, making sure people are more collaborative and supportive and willing to work together to make more things happen. And honestly, everybody is for the most part.
Yeah.
Everybody talks to everybody. Everybody's a phone call away, and Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for artists. We listen to a lot of artists. Um, I mean, if there's someone that really piques our interest, we always reach out to them and have a conversation. We may not sign them, but we'll at least have a conversation with them and say,
Right.
"Hey, we
Keep
really like
dialogue
your
going.
music," and keep at it. Because like you said very honestly, in indie music, that's the hardest part: is staying true to yourself, being able to fund it, and
Yeah.
not worry about, hey, I'm not making enough money or
Yeah.
I can't survive doing this.
It's quite
Um,
clear that at this point right now in India, the people who will consider venturing into this will be the relatively more privileged people who can take this risk instead of those guys who literally need to survive off music. Like those people will sort of enter
that
later.
is the real truth of where things were at. I think that's
Mhm.
changing slowly and
Mhm.
steadily because music production costs have gone down. It's
Mhm.
easier to produce music through technology.
True.
And I am hopeful that that shift happens a lot faster, where it's
Yeah.
not about
Yeah.
just us in the urban cities. Like,
Yeah.
why can't there be a killer rapper that comes out of Indore or Nagpur or Baroda or like
Mm.
some small little city in the south?
Mm.
Because there are amazing artists all over
There
the
are,
place.
but it's a complicated process to sort of first for you as an agency to find those diamonds in the rough
Correct.
and for
So
them
the
to
way
sort
to
of even show themselves out there. Matlab, you Instagram or somewhere they must be uploading something which is really quality stuff. But again, for you to discover them is another thing. So for
correct,
those
agreed with
things
you.
to sort of work,
It's a lot harder.
yeah,
I'm not denying that, but that is the challenge for us as people
that's the
is to
challenge.
discover
Yeah,
these undiscovered gems of
yeah,
India
yeah,
and actually put them on a global map,
yeah.
because that's who we are. We're amazing people, and
Yeah.
like
We have great musical heritage
we have
also.
great, we do, I mean, and why, I mean, like, everyone's so inspired by the kind of sounds. I mean, I work with an artist who actually writes music with where he has no real Indian elements in it, and that's like a first in this country in all these years, like
Mm.
just an acoustic guitar and his voice, and his voice is the Indianness in it. It's not
Yeah,
the guitar playing, because that could be anybody from
of
anywhere.
course. Exactly. Yeah.
But I still listen to every single piece of like Indian sounding original music that comes out of India because I really like it, and I really
Yeah.
feel that's who we are as
It's sort
people.
of imbibed
Uh,
in us, those sounds. They are part of us growing up, either those Indian sounds or maybe like somewhere you hear in the mandir or some bhajan at home or something. It gets internalized within you and you relate to it no matter where it plays, how it plays.
exactly, and I mean, guys like Nuclear wouldn't, I mean, are successful because of that. I mean,
Yeah.
guys like Ritviz have found a voice for
Yeah.
themselves using
Yeah.
Indian. There is an Indianness to it.
Yeah.
It may not be
But the fact that,
explicitly by.
Prateek actually uh, got such a following without trying to be Indian. He's not tried to be Indian. He probably just sings in Hindi, and that's about it. That's about it. When it
That's
comes to
it.
being Indian for him, and
Correct.
I would always wonder that when would we sort of have our singer songwriters India mein, like independent, not Bollywood and stuff, but our original singer
It's
songwriters who
happening now. There's a
it's
lot.
happening and
There's a lot now. In fact,
yeah.
I mean, kudos to all the streaming platforms, to be
Mm.
honest, for
Yeah.
all the support that they give to all the indie artists breaking out, and to all the independent singer songwriters and to electronic producers and everyone. Like,
Yeah.
um, from the fact that they playlist them, from the fact that they give them covers, from the fact that they give them visibility within the platform,
Mm.
that a wider audience will actually discover them and start liking them.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
something that is the only way to break artists now.
Yeah.
And
It's about
um,
creating awareness now for whoever we
yeah,
have. Like the way we are
yeah,
talking about why we aren't finding diamonds in the rough, people in smaller cities must be wondering where do we find someone like Prateek Kuhad?
correct. And it'll happen. Like, I think we had, to be very honest with you, it's not like DJs didn't exist in India.
Yeah.
Okay. The success of One Nuclear opened that boundary and broke
Yeah.
that like wall, like as I call it, like it's a
Absolutely.
class. He broke class. There was no more the guy who would go to the fanciest club to the rickshaw wala was listening to
Yeah.
Nuclear.
Transcended
That
barriers,
is
literally.
that's what I mean by like breaking class. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
I love you because you like you're all
Yeah.
like can listen to
Yeah.
nuclear. That the same thing happens with someone like Arijit Singh at a larger level. If you look at Bollywood, the
Yeah.
same thing happens with someone like a Shankar Mahadevan. If you look at it,
Yeah.
so why not singer songwriters out of India who are like everyone from an Ankur Tiwari to like all the girls that are putting out such amazing songs from Mali to Abhilasha to Hanita to
Yeah.
all the girls, they're all doing such amazing work, and I'm sure all of them will find an audience for themselves
Yeah.
in this growing market as we call it. And it all takes one good big success for this
Yeah.
market to evolve and to grow.
Yeah.
So hopefully
Over the
that'll
last couple of years, we've had almost one person in every style of music. Like you said, electronic, bowl. You say singer songwriter. You say someone in between electronic and singer songwriter, which is Ritwiz, and then these girls also who are, trailing that path and
yeah, and then
collaborating.
all the other guys and all the sub genres of electronic music who nobody really talks about but actually
Yeah.
are big in their own way,
Yeah.
and are gigging like
And these are
30,
just
40
like the mainstream acts that sort of are easy for the audience to accept. After that, there's a class of musicians like rock bands, and in rock there are so many genres, like you may know, and even those artists are like really good. They're the
yeah,
production
like bands
quality, their
like
songwriting.
bands like the Local Train, bands like
Yeah.
When Chai Met Toast,
Let me keep
they're all
searching.
got
When Chai Met Toast, Pare Can Sing.
yeah, yeah, all
Yeah,
of them have their own style and their own sound, and
that's yeah.
they're creating their own world
Leaves
of
the
fun.
it leaves the option to the audience to pick what you want. To you pick your
Yeah,
vibe. There's all kinds of things available now in terms of the music, and
exactly.
I think that's great because it lets the audience choose their vibe, and not just back then when we just had a few bands के हाँ ये band अच्छा है यही है इंडिया में बस. So
Agreed. I totally agree with that. I mean, everybody, and now increasingly more than ever before, like there's going to be a lot more of this happening. Like,
yeah.
especially right now with Bollywood shut. Like, pretty much when I say shut, I mean shut. Like, nobody's able to shoot movies, nobody's recording, doing anything.
Yeah.
Till a movie releases, the music won't get released,
Yeah.
even if music is created in its time. So it's
Yeah.
actually the best time for independent music,
True.
because all the platforms are willing to support it, give it
Yeah.
visibility because there isn't that much music coming out. So
True.
that's where, like, if you're an independent
Independent
artist, it's
musician.
actually a
Yeah.
great time to put out music.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
so yeah,
Awesome, man. We had a great
yeah,
chat. I mean, we've
yeah.
covered almost. Have you left out anything from the journey? I
Not
sort of
really. I don't
hate
think
using
so.
the word journey
I
because
mean,
I
I
do it a
did.
lot on the podcast, but
Yeah, there's a lot.
something.
I mean, there's so much we do in our lives. Like, I think
Mm,
from touring to bookings to management to
mm,
film deals to scoring deals to
yeah.
everything and anything in between.
Mm,
That I think for me, like, management starts with the music
mm,
and the people that you work with,
mm,
and as long as those two things stay at the center of your focus, I think everything else will fall into place.
right.
Um, every Everything starts and ends with that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I mean, you can build an amazing fan base. You can do fan activities, keeping
Mm,
them happy and keeping them at the center of every artist's own
mm.
like focus area is something that is definitely important. But like for the most part, I think yeah, that's pretty much what it's about for me, at least.
Do you think that you know we need to have more artist managers in the scene?
Most
Like,
definitely.
um yeah,
The
as
more
in,
the merrier. The more we have, the more chats we can have, and more banter we can have, and the more fun we can all have together. That's
yeah,
when
the
in
community
any
grows
mark,
that way.
I strongly feel in any business, the more players there are, the better it is for the business,
Yeah,
because that's when it becomes fun for
fun.
everyone to do
Yeah,
what they do. I mean, and gets more challenging
yeah.
as we grow. I think
So
we're still a while away from
normally,
there.
sorry, continue.
I'm saying I still think we're a while away from having that many managers in the scene, but
Yeah,
at least now there is an artist and there is a pool of artists to work with, and
yeah,
those artists are definitely amazing artists in whatever way, shape, or form that they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
We as an agency work in so many different spheres now that there's so many cross pollination that happen. Hey, I have this movie coming along. Do you have an artist that can do the score for this particular song or an ad or a jingle or a film? Or a singer says, "Hey, I'm making a music video. Is there an actor that can actually like would that I really like, but I don't know that person. Can you guys help us find
Right.
and join those dots?"
Right.
All of that is happening now. Like
Right.
very very
Yeah.
cohesively as we grow. So
And it's very organic also. Like it just, I don't know if you can serve my needs or no, but I'm just gonna reach out to you and be like, hey, I have these needs and see what you can
yeah,
do.
I mean, and more of us out there talking to people, like sharing our viewpoints and being open to a conversation, I think the better it is for the artists as well, because sometimes
Yeah.
they just need objectivity and perspective from an
Yeah.
outside person who has no connection to who that person is
True.
and what their backstory is and what their struggles are.
Hmm.
Because all of that is part and parcel of being a musician. It's not an easy place. It's not. You decided. I mean, this is something that Dhruv says. But artists decided to be artists because the day they decided to be artists, they actually agreed to be judged for the rest of their life on everything that they do. And
Hmm.
it used to be the music. Now it's less the music and more your social media personality and
Yeah.
what you're up to and your and things like that. So um, I mean, it's hard. It's not easy,
Yeah.
but at the same time, that's the fun of it. I
Yeah.
mean, like Karan, who works with us, who's our
Thrill.
illusionist, has decided to do like Zoom gigs, one-on-one Zoom shows for people in the lockdown. He did close to 2,000 shows. He played close to 500 shows in the first month and a half of the lockdown, one-on-one with people
What?
around the globe. Each day he was doing shows from 3 p.m. till 3 a.m. every day,
Wow.
um, where people would pay him, I mean, minimal money, next to nothing for one trick, two trick, three tricks.
Uh-huh.
He and he actually like went in. I mean, he did that and got picked up by the New York Times to talk about the fact that he's actually doing this. And the New York Times guy was just hanging out on his private Zoom calls
Probably
without no
setting
people
some kind of
knowing
a
that he was
record
there.
there.
Yeah, so I mean, like, so many people are doing fun things. People are shooting movies in the lockdown.
Hmm.
Artists are collaborating remotely. So
Yeah.
from a lockdown, I mean, now is when the real challenge will begin, I think, because we're 6 months into this today.
Yeah.
Like for me, I've been pretty much indoors for 6 months. So how everybody proceeds and keeps their mental sanity together while not meeting too many people, I
Yeah.
think is the real challenge of life as we go along. Because
Right.
seems like it's going to be a while before we're all going to be back out and
Yeah,
dancing
man.
together and
I
partying together.
I say at least 6 more months till we are all back on the dance floor or the arena or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
For us to
I
be
was,
comfortably there, okay, if there's a vaccine in place, if I go out, something happens to me, I can go get a shot. That's at
yeah,
least
exactly.
6 months away.
At
So
least,
that there
and
might be a few smaller private events here and there, which
yeah,
us might
those sort of
get to.
those sort of things have started. I mean, we've been doing a few Zoom private parties for people.
Mhm.
So that's happening.
Mm.
I mean, we started a thing with the guys at Book My Show called the My Digi Gig, which is pretty much that
Mm.
private curated Zoom concerts for everything from a birthday party to a chotha. I mean, um, but just helping people put the whole thing together more
Yeah,
than anything else.
yeah,
Money will come and money will go, but at least give people a system to actually book artists and
yeah.
find artists of all price ranges. So yeah, I mean, everybody's trying to do different interesting things, but
It's good, man.
hopefully we'll all get to actually physically meet each other in the new year. This year is definitely not happening, so let's see.
This year
Hopefully in the new
would
year.
be a great New Year celebration, I think, because everyone's looking forward to 2021. Most of
Yeah,
the people are writing off 2020, not even willing to count their age
yeah,
by a
yeah.
number.
That happened yesterday. One of our friends is like, I'm not turned anything. It's the same. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't count on me. So
yeah.
cool, man. Nice
Cool,
chatting
man.
with you.
Awesome. Yeah,
And
lovely
if you have
chatting.
anything else, hit me up for anything
Will
you
do
need.
for sure. Let's probably connect in a few months again, see what's up with Prateek or Kamakshi, and maybe we can have one of them do a show.
Yeah, for
on a
sure.
show and chat
Yeah, we will.
whenever it sounds good. And hopefully, there is some kind of show that you can organize and I can attend.
Yeah, for sure. We'll figure it out.
For sure, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Lovely. I'm just
See
going to
you.
stop the recording for a moment.